lot. Okay. But I wanted to still give you guys a fucking reading. I mean, not a reading, but I wanted to let you guys know about Gemini and Gemini relationships. First of all, I'm not attracted to them. Okay. Hello, everybody. And this is my story about Gemini and Gemini dating. At least my experience in doing so. Okay. So I've had a June Gemini as well as a May Gemini. May I add that they are completely different, but they share a lot of similarities. One thing being very similar is the passion in the beginning, wanting to be up under you, wanting to get to know you, wanting to have sex with you. That is very true on both sides in the beginning between both Geminis. Okay, now let me start from the top. So the very first Gemini that I dated when right before the Aries. Okay, so my aunt had just moved to this area, which was very familiar for my aunt and their family, but however, I was sheltered as a kid and I didn't get to go outside, and the area that I was in wasn't like Newark, which is where I did most of my fucking at. Okay, just period. You know, I'm transparent. So you know, when my aunt moved into this new apartment, okay, the apartment was on one of the rough number blocks. For those of you who are aware of Newark, New Jersey, you know, the number blocks are the blocks, okay? So, yeah, my aunt moves on this number blocks, and one thing about me is when people move, my friends, my family, or anybody moves, I immediately want to see who's around, okay? Because I'm always up for new adventures. I really feel like I'm gonna feel bad about about telling my story later as people find out that I have a YouTube and they're like, yo, this bitch is a hoe. But whatever, okay? It's my past, don't judge me. Thank you, Chaco Holiday. Okay, it is what it is. So, with that being said, okay, I'm experienced. So my aunt moves on the number blocks, okay, and anywhere that any of my friends, family members, or whoever moves to, I want to see what's in the area. You know, I'm walking to the store, I'm sitting on the porch. You know, I just want to see if it's somebody over here with me worth knowing. Whatever. So, you know, at that time, my aunt and my cousin and a few other of my friends were all young. I mean, we had to be like maybe like 16 and 17. So we outside anyway. What's up? Let's see what's going on out here, okay? And you know, there's boys. My friends, I was late. I got out there late. My friends was already hooking up with motherfuckers, you know, their friends. Because, you know, when you're in the hood, it's like a group of boys or whatever. And these group of boys, if one of them talk to the bitch in the building, then it's a chance that they gonna try to hook all their friends up so everybody could be cool with everybody. So when I got there, everybody was already hooked up. So I was asked out from the rip. So I said, okay, if I can't get with anybody, then fuck it. Because first of all, I wasn't going to go for just anybody. I definitely, that's not my thing. Even though I see who everybody else is hooking up with, I still want to know, you know, who got the money, you know, who got the shit going on, who has the bag, who looks good, because I ain't just for everybody. So my friends was just fuck. So my other friend, who was the Sagittarius, who is now my son's godmother, she had one of the ones with the bag, okay? Sagittarius is just like Gemini. We don't play that shit. Sagittarius, she got one with the bag, and all the rest of my friends, all the rest of the bitches was fucking like little niggas, ugly niggas, whatever, just there. So, I'm like, okay, well, serious. Oddly enough, ain't nobody left for me, and I wouldn't want the ones that was left anyway. I said the fuck still. So, but we, Gemini still like to be in a lime life, so I'm outside. And, I was outside for a couple of hours just chilling. Just everybody got their little boo things, but I'm just chilling because I'm like, this can't be all that's out here. We in the hood. It got to be more coming out here. But my grandmother was really strict, and she wanted me in the house by like 9 or 10 o'clock. So, mind you, I was only like 17 or just turning 18. I was still living with my grandmother. She was really strict. She was a Sagittarius too. God rest her soul. So, I was getting myself. I said, you know what? I got up. We all sat on the porch all fucking day. Literally, because these bitches had niggas, and I was just sitting there. So we was outside the whole fucking day. They babysitting they niggas and doing whatever, holding their drugs or whatever, and I'm just here. So I want to say maybe like 8 or 9 o'clock, I say, you know what, I got to go home. My grandmother's going to fuck me up, and I got to catch the bus, and I got to go to college. At that time, was I in college? I was in college, okay? So, I had to get ready for school anyway, because my grandmother was not going to finance me if I didn't fucking get my ass in the house, and my grandmother definitely financed me very well. So, I got my shit, and I started to walk down the street, and this guy pulls up in a Cadillac, and I'm like, the fuck? Like, and of course, I'm thinking Cadillac, that's an old ass man. No. And this big, tall, cocky, unproportioned, light-skinned motherfucker, maybe 6'2". He unrolls himself out the car because he's tall, so he has to unroll himself. He don't just hop out the car. He gotta put one leg out and slide out. But he gets the fuck out, and he's beautiful, okay? And when I say he's beautiful, he had to be like high yellow, very like long dreads, and I'm like, hi. And he's like, he's very nice, he's very cordial. We don't like hood rats. Even though we be in the hood, we rather not have the hood rats, even though we with the shits. We with the Bonnie and Clyde shit, but the motherfucker still gotta be smart or make sense. So he gets out and he's like, hello, my name is such and such. I don't want to say his name, but he says, my name is such and such, and it's nice to meet you. And I'm like, okay, it's nice to meet you too. And he's like, well, where are you going? It's late. I definitely have a type. Yes, I do. So he's like, it's late. Where the fuck are you going? And I'm like, I'm going home. And he's like, what do you mean? Where's home at? You're not from out here? And I'm like, no, my aunt lives down here. I was just down here with them, but I'm going home. He's like, oh, let me take you home or whatever. So I'm like, okay, you can take me home, but I need to leave like now. So he's like, well, can you just chill out for a minute? Like, I'll drive you wherever you lived at. And at the time, I lived all the way in Orange. And he's like, well, let's chill first. So I'm like, okay, cool. So we get in a car, and he takes me to the other side of town. And the other side of town is a little bit better than, the number blocks. That is the Weekway section. And he's like, this is where my grandfather stays, and he's just talking, okay? From the rip, he's talking. This is where my grandmother stay at. My grandfather is on dialysis. He lives here by himself. My grandmother lives down south. I take care of him. And I'm like, okay, that explains the Cadillac. He like, yeah, this is his Cadillac. I take him back and forth to his programs, and then after that, I'm free. So I'm like, well, what do you do for a living? So he looks down and he's like, well, I hustle. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, so what are you doing with yourself? And I'm like, well, I'm in college, and that's why I have to go home. My grandmother takes care of me. He's like, well, how old are you? And I think I was 17. I'm like, I'm 17. And he's like, oh, well, what did he say? He's like, okay, well, I'm 19, or I think he was like 19 or 20. I'm like, well, do you have kids? He's like, no, do you? I'm like, hell no, my grandmother killed me. So he's like, okay, well, how would you feel if I took you to your grandmother's house so she knew you were okay, and then I brought you back with me? And I'm like, I just met you. I don't think that that's okay. So he's like, okay, so how about I just go? He was like very persistent at the very fucking beginning. Like, okay, well, how about I just sit out, I'll take you to your house, but we'll just sit outside and we'll keep talking. And I'm like, well, what about your grandfather? He's like, well, my grandfather goes to sleep after 9 o'clock and he sleeps the whole night. So I'm like, okay, cool. So he drives me to my grandmother's house, and sure enough, I go in the house, because even how my grandmother's house was, um like, my room wasn't a part of her apartment. She had 3 floors, and my aunt lived on the second floor, my grandmother lived on the third floor, and then my aunt lived on the first floor, my grandmother lived on the second floor, and then my uncle lived on the third floor. But there was an extra room in the front, and when I got old enough to come in and out by myself, I moved myself out of my grandmother's apartment into this room so I could sneak in and out. And my grandmother had gotten to the point where she knew I was sneaky, so she would wait up and peek out and like shit like that. She didn't have nothing else to do anyway. Once I left, she died. It was like she didn't have any other like move to do after that. I basically kept her young. So I come in the house and I'm like, Grandma, I'm here. And she's like, okay, well, take your ass to bed because you were supposed to be home. Like, she still treated me like a baby. So I acted like I laid down, and the whole fucking time the Gemini waits outside. And he's like, yo, he's texting me. And this is back then when we had those monologue phones that was like gray and black. I had one that slid up, like, but anyways, it was like way back in the day. So he's texting me and he's like, I'm waiting for you. Like, because again, even though he's waiting, he's impatient, but he's waiting because he likes me. So he's like, I'm waiting for you or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just waiting for my grandmother to go to sleep or whatever. And he's like, okay, no problem. I'm going to just go and get something to eat. So I'm like, well, by that, I'm telling him where everything is at. And he's like, okay, I'll go and get the food and I'll come back. What do you want? So he done went and got food. He came back. We sat in the front and we just talking. My grandmother went to sleep and we talking and talking. I don't even think I went to sleep that night. I think I stayed up. Matter of fact, off topic though, you pretty. Thank you. We didn't. He didn't even go. We didn't go to sleep. I don't even think he went home. Like, I don't really recall. Because I know he took me to school that next morning. So I don't think he ever went home. I think he literally stayed there that whole night. Or he either stayed there really late and then he came back in the morning to get me to take me to school. So my aunt and Norton wasn't used to seeing me every fucking day. So after I finished at school, I came straight to my fucking aunt's house. And I'm telling my cousin, I'm like, bruh, I just met this guy. And they like, who are you talking about? I'm like, I met him at the corner. He's everything or whatever. So, my cousin is like, let me see who the fuck you talking. Let me see who you talking about, because she's older than me. This is the Sagittarius. I'm calling her my cousin because we're so close. We grew up together like family, but this is really just my friend. So she's like, let me see this motherfucker. Let me see how he look or whatever. So I said, okay, when he comes back, I'll bring you downstairs. So he comes. Because that's another thing. They're very consistent. We are very consistent people when we like you. Almost like obsessive. So he knew what time I got out of school, but he also knew that I caught the bus. He didn't pick me up from school. I caught the bus from school because he had to take his grandfather to dialysis. So when he got, as soon as he finished with dialysis, I think I got out of school maybe like 2:15. By 3:15, that nigga was at the door. Okay, so he pulls up, and wasn't nobody else nigga drive. Nobody else boyfriend wasn't driving. Everybody else boyfriend was walking. He was driving, but he was only driving because he was driving his grandfather's car. So, anyways, he comes and he's like, what are you about to do? And I'm like, well, I'm whatever. I didn't want to make it seem like I was thirsty or I was desperate. So I'm like, I'm not doing nothing, but, you know, I can't really leave my aunt, whatever, whatever. So he's like, well, let's go get something to eat. Straight like that. So I'm like, okay, because that's one thing about Gemini is we could fucking eat. You see these big ass arms? We could fucking eat, okay? So we go, whatever, and we go to get food. And he's like, where do you want to go? And I'm like, what do you mean? Take me back to my aunt's house. And he's like, well, I don't have to do nothing right now. Let's just go to my house. And back when I was a little younger, okay, it was like, okay, like everything was like, okay, like let's go back to your house, cool. And I'll never forget this shit because he did say that his grandmother his grandfather was like really sick, like he was bedridden, like he couldn't move, but I didn't know to the extent it was. So when he brought me to the house, soon as you walk in, his fucking grandfather was right there. Like literally, you open the door, there's a bed. There's somebody to fuck in it. Everybody knows you're here. Okay? Hello. So I walk in and the grandfather's like, she's beautiful. Like immediately. And back then I was like really like into natural hair, natural nails, natural. And I was not skinny, but I wasn't fat. I always had titties. I didn't have no ass. I was like just, you know, regular. And they were like, she's pretty. So, you know, I guess that gassed him up anyway, because Gemini's like that attention. We like for our mate to be gorgeous. I mean, he was gorgeous. So, we take our food, we go in the room, and he's just so comforting. That's another thing. We want you to feel comfortable. Me being a Gemini, first of all, I don't just invite anybody to my house, okay? So, when I invite you to my house, I already trust you. I'm already comfortable with you, and I want you to share the experience of being comfortable with me too. To the point where take your shoes off, kick back, you need something, go in the refrigerator. I'm like that. And I think that other Geminis are like that too, because that's how he was. He was like, okay, you know, get comfortable. And I'm like, what do you mean get comfortable? He like, you need a shirt? Because at this time, I forgot what I had on. I think this was back in the day when motherfuckers was cutting their shorts and the little frilly part. So I'm pretty sure I had those on, because it was like my favorite fucking shorts. And they had like the pockets that you could put the hands in through the side. So yeah, I had on like tight clothes. And he's like, oh, take your shit off or whatever, get comfortable. He gave me some boxes, he gives me a shirt, and my grandmother is blowing my phone up, because mind you, I got out of school at 2 o'clock. We went to go eat around 3 or 4, and then by 5 o'clock we at his house. Now it's 6 o'clock. And I ain't even call nobody. I didn't left my aunt's house. My grandmother didn't call my aunt. My aunt didn't call me. I don't give a fuck about nothing. I'm in la la land. Because if you a Gemini and you watching this, you know when we start liking a motherfucker, or when they're making us happy, again, we're the lovers. We got the love. Everything else could wait. You bitches could wait, okay? Don't call me. And I got somewhere to go to. And this motherfucker said I could stay here. Bitch, you may not see me again. Sorry, grandma, but no. Okay, that's where I was. So I get to the house. Mind you, this is only day 2. Okay. This is only day 2, but this is how we are. Okay. We in the house, and I'm like, I'm telling him from the very first night, I'm like, listen, I'm not having sex with you. And he's like, no, ain't nobody saying nothing about having sex. I just wanted you to be comfortable while you were here. So I'm like, okay, cool. We eating. Mind you, it was, I will never forget him because he had this king size box spring, but like this full size mattress. I'll never forget it. I was like, why the fuck does the mattress not fit? But it came in handy at one. I'll get there. So I'm like, that's such a nigga for you though. He just put something on something. It was like home, okay? So but mind you, this is back in the day. He already had a flat screen TV. He had all the shoes, but the box spring and the mattress just didn't fit. I don't know. And you know, we don't give a fuck. And then it's even worse for the men. The men Geminis really don't give a fuck. So we eat, we boo up, and then we don't have sex. I say we don't have sex. He does not pressure me. And I think we talked because he started telling me what happened to his mother. He didn't have no mother. I meet a lot of men that don't have mothers either. So, and that may be something prevalent for me too, because I still to this day, I either meet men who don't have a mother or a mother who was very mean or lenient towards them, and they need healing from that. I become the mother that heals them, or the mothering energy that they need. I remember that prevalently about him too. So anyways, you know, I wake up at 5 o'clock in the fucking morning, and I'm like, oh my fucking God, I did not call my grandmother. And my grandmother, I mean, when she didn't have a cell phone. My grandmother was old. My grandmother was an old school grandmother. She did not have her kids young. Okay, my grandmother only had 2 kids. She had a Gemini and she had a Scorpio. Okay, and my Scorpio aunt that lived downstairs was strict too. So it was over. I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I had all types of text messages. My aunt was like, bitch, I'm turning this phone off. My grandmother was like, bitch, I swear to God, when I catch you, you better be dead. If you're not dead, I'm going to kill you. You're never going back outside again. So I'm like, you know, I don't say anything. I just continue on with my day. And I'm like, listen, I have to go to school, and I still had the same fucking clothes on from yesterday, and I'm like, I don't want to go to school like that. When I say that motherfucker reached into his pocket, I swear on my grandmother's grave, he reached into his pocket and said, how much do you need? And I said, I can't do nothing this early in the morning anyway. He's like, but I'm still asking you. You going to be here tomorrow night too, so how much do you need? I'm like, this motherfucker said tomorrow night. Period. Like, how much do you need to get clothes for today, tomorrow, and however long you're going to be staying? So I'm like, I don't know, because technically I still need to go home and get clothes today. So he's like, well, do you want me to take you? I'm like, yeah, take me, but I need you to know, I have, you know, my grandmother's going to curse me out. He's like, okay, fine. If you want me to go in there with you to explain what happened, I will. Or I'll wait outside for you. Because that's another thing about Geminis. When they like you, they will stand by you. Okay? Whatever the fuck is going on, they ride or die. Okay? He would have cursed my motherfucking grandmother out for me if need be. Okay? If my grandmother would have got crazy, that nigga probably would have got crazy too, because that's how in that moment we be, okay? Because that's how I am. Bitch, don't talk to, I don't give a fuck if this nigga fell out your pussy. He mine's now. He in mine's now. Don't talk to mines like that, okay? But, so, that's how he was. So, you know, we go to my grandmother's house, and surprisingly, my grandmother's not mad. My grandmother's happy to see me, and she's like, you know, where the fuck have you been? Okay, where have you been? And I'm like, I stayed the night at my friend's house, and he wants me to stay the night again. I was very honest with my grandmother all the fucking time, and my grandmother's like, you know what? Don't get pregnant. Don't get pregnant. She's like, you know, If that's what you want to do and you like him, just make sure that if you're going to be staying at his house, he feeds you and he takes care of you. My grandmother was dead serious about shit like that, okay? So I said, okay, I am going to go back now. Like, just period. I'm like, I just came to get a few things. I'm going to go back to his house or whatever. And she's like, all right, cool. So I get my things and I go back. I get like 4 or 5 things, and I'm late for school because, mind you, he dropped me off there like 7 in the morning. I had to be to school like 8:39. So I changed my clothes real quick. Don't even wash my little dirty ass. I changed my clothes, go straight the fuck to school, and he has all my shit in the car. And bitch, just like that, I was with a Gemini. I didn't even have sex with him. I was already halfway moved the fuck in, and had money for lunch. Like. Yeah, bitch. So, I get out of school again. I go to my aunt's house. My aunt like, oh, my aunt is a Leo. She like, oh, bitch, this nigga got you open. You here every day. We ain't never seen you this much. Like, you here every day at the school now. And I'm like, you know, whatever, because at this time again, this the 3rd fucking day. I can't just go to his house after school. I gotta wait for him to come and get me from you, bitch. So I'm at her house, and like clockwork, he's outside, you know, but he's hustling, so I have to wait for him to do whatever he's doing, and I'm fine with that. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit here and chill with my aunt and everybody else, because this is what everybody was doing anyway, until he get ready and we gonna go in the house. But I had already had it in my mind that we was fucking tonight, so I'm like you're going to notice in all my stories, okay, that it does not take me a very long time to have sex. And that's because even still to this day, I see no point in waiting. I don't. If I'm going to like it, I'm going to like it next week or next month, next year. And if you're going to leave, you're going to leave today, tomorrow, next month. Don't waste my time. Let's have an experience, okay? And that's only if I want to have the experience, because as you can see, I have a type and I'm already into what I'm into. Okay, and once I already, and then the Aries in me is like, bitch, just take it off now, okay? Because my mother even said that shit to me not too long ago, like, why the fuck do you have sex? Because my mother's a Gemini too, so I'm so cool with telling her the truth. And she's like, well, Ashley, you need to give it time. I'm like, Ma, I'm like a nigga when it comes to shit like that. I need to fuck, and I need to fuck now. I need to know before I even go any further if it's worth me going forward too. I've never had a relationship that has been fucked up because we had sex fast, okay? My marriage with my husband, okay, I had sex with him is immediately, okay? Immediately. And we had sex every day after that consecutively. I was a month pregnant a month after I met him. So I don't give a fuck about that. Fuck you. Take it how you want. But anyways, so by the 3rd night, I already was moved in, and I already had it in my mind that I wanted to have sex. But the problem with the fact that I wanted to have sex is I again, as a Gemini, we want to make sure everything is perfect. Okay, we want to make sure everything is perfect. I wanted to be shaved. I wanted, you know, all the things. So, and he was outside, and of course he was asking me like, listen, you know, what does he want? What does he want? Like, no, I'm sorry. I'm getting fucked up because I'm reading the comments. Let me ignore y'all comments for a minute. So I'm out, you know, in the mix while I'm outside, he's constantly asking me if I need something. You know, do you want anything, like food, like, and I'm like, you know, because we're humble too. We don't use people. That's one thing about Geminis. We don't fucking use people. Even the Gemini men, we don't use people. We too busy helping to use people, and that's why we wind up getting used. So when he's asking me, do I need something, I'm like, no. But then I think about it, I'm like, well, you know, I haven't taken a shower in 2 fucking days. I'm running back and forth with you. I need to get some toiletries and shit like that. So he's like, yeah. He takes me, we go to fucking Family Dollar. because my grandmother gave me like this credit card, and she would put in a certain amount of money on the credit card, but I didn't want her to know, because she also checked it, and I didn't want her to know where I was at, because then if I went missing too long, she would call the police. Like, my grandmother was like serious like that. So I didn't use the credit card in that area. I only used the credit card when I was downtown, because we sneaky too. So I only used the credit card if I was at school or around school area, so she could be like, well, the last place she was at school. So anyways, he uses his money and he buys like all this stuff, razors and, you know, deodorant and toothbrush. I get like, I even snuck and got like this little pennies and things, because Family Dollar had this little spot where you get a few items or whatever, and I get everything, and I hide it from him so he don't know. And, you know, but he pays for it because he still gives me the money, and, you know, I got it. He's waiting in the car because he still gotta do whatever he's doing, because he's hustling. Meanwhile, he's still taking me to go get whatever he's going to go get. So then he's like, so what are you about to do? Are you ready to go in the house, or are you waiting for me to go in the house? And I'm like, well, I do want to get ready. I still have to go to school. Or did I have to go to school this day? I think this was Friday. I think this was a Friday, and I don't think I had to go to school. So but I was tired, and again, it wasn't even about me being tired. It was about the fact that I wanted to get sexy. So mind you, I'm only 17. So embarrassing, but I wanted to get sexy, so, you know, I'm like, all right, fuck it, let me just go in the house. So he takes me in the house. His family already knows me. I done been there for 2 days. I'm in the refrigerator. It's to the point now where when the grandfather needs something, he's calling me too. Like, if he not answering, he like, Ashley, where the fuck is, you know, such and such at? You know, where the fuck is he at? Because he's not answering me. Can you get me this, or can you do this? Because he can't move. He was also like really big. So I'm already in there, okay? So, but again, in order to get past the bathroom or anything, I have to go past the grandfather, so he sees me. So, again, I don't like getting dressed in the bathroom. That's a pet peeve of mine. It's wet, okay? That's just like, I don't like using the bathrooms that's wet. It's nasty. So I get in the shower, I lay all my stuff out that I'm going to put on. I mean, the lotions, the smell goods, all of that. And my thing is, I never was the type of person to get that cheap ass spray from the dollar store, or the cheap ass, you know, them cheap, cheesy, have you smelling like a fucking incense ass sprays. I never did that. So what I did, I said the best scent was baby scent. So I got like a baby oil. I think I had baby oil, plus my little freak ass was like, I'm gonna be smooth when he come in. So it has to be like maybe like 10 o'clock when I get myself together. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now I'm so perfect. I'm buttered down, and I got this cute little thing on, and it fits perfectly. I'll never forget, this was back in the day when I ain't had no fupa, so the panties set, everything was perfect. Yeah, body fantasy perfume, the whole set. I hated it. So 10 o'clock goes by, you know, I text him. I'm like, you know, what you doing? He's like, nothing, I'm out here chilling. And now again, I'm on top of the covers, bitch. The bed made with his little fucking big ass box spring and shit. So I'm like, okay, I'm sitting here. But I'm so in character because I want him to come in the door. That's always been my thing with everybody, though. I'm going to put on a show, okay? So when you walk in the door, I want you to be like, God damn. Like, so the whole time I didn't want to get under the cover. Mind you, it was the summertime. We had the AC on and everything. I was fucking freezing. But I would not fucking get under that cover because I wanted him to see me when he walked through that door. It got to the point where I waited so long for him to come in the fucking house, bitch. The oil started absorbing in my body. I had to put more on, but I did that because I was going to be ready for whenever he came in the fucking house, okay? I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning. He had never came in the fucking house. Never came in the fucking house. So now I am pissed. I'm pissed. I'm like, what? Why would you have me come here and you're not fucking here? Okay, why would you do that? And he's like, yo, the car, he has this big ass story, because again, the one thing about a Gemini man is they will fucking lie, and their lies are believable. So he's like, yo, the car wouldn't fucking start. I was trying to, I don't know what the fuck going on with the car. You know it's not my car. So I sat out here and started making money so that I could get the car fixed. And he stood me up in his own fucking house, okay?